Hello everyone! Welcome to my kitchen. Welcome to Cooking Scoop. Today we're going to be making kimchi together. Yes, kimchi. A Korean specialty which is, I think, very famous all around the world. You would ask me, why are you making kimchi today? Because I was very lucky and privileged to learn how to make kimchi together with a Korean chef. How? Let me explain. In collaboration with Korean Culture Center in Brussels, we organized an online culinary workshop. That was a great experience for me, and I was very lucky and privileged, as I said, to be making kimchi with a Korean chef, Mrs. Che. It was a very special event because it was the first time an online workshop was being streamed on Face Live as well. And we had so much fun, and I learned a lot about making kimchi. And I said, why not I use all the information, all the knowledge that I gathered that day and make kimchi in my own kitchen. So today we're going to be making kimchi together. Before we start, I would like to give you some information about kimchi. I mean, we can talk about kimchi for hours. There's so much to know about kimchi. Basically, a Korean meal without a kimchi is not possible. It is actually a side dish. It accompanies all the different types of Korean dishes. It is really great. Basically, it is fermented vegetables. The most commonly known and famous one is the Poggi Kimchi. It is actually the kimchi made with the Napa Cabbage. Actually, this is the star of the show today. This is the Napa Cabbage in English. In French, we call it chou chinois. As far as I know, and I learned from the Korean chef Miss Che, is that there are actually more than 200 types of kimchi. Kimchi is actually the name of the process of fermenting the vegetables. So you can ferment different types of vegetables and it will become the kimchi of that vegetable. So today we're going to be making kimchi with poggi, the Napa cabbage, so it's going to be called Poggi Kimchi. But as I said, there are so many different types, other types. Well, actually, of course, you can find them at a specialized supermarket in packages already made, but I want to take the challenge today and make the kimchi with you. This is actually going to take almost a full day. We're not going to be working the full day, obviously. So I would strongly recommend you to start during the morning, because when we soak the cabbages in salty water, we will leave them for about like 6 to 8 hours in salty water to make them soft enough for the second stage. So beware and be well prepared. That was my experience. I actually prepared everything here, even the bowls that I'm going to be using. So before I start, I made sure that I had everything ready. For the exact amount of ingredients, please have a look at the list of the ingredients, which is coming right away. The star of today's video is the Napa cabbage. We're going to be making the Napa cabbage kimchi, Poggi Kimchi. And we're also going to be using the Korean radish. Actually, I was lucky enough to find the Korean radish in this specialized supermarket, but you can also use the white radish that you can find easily in big supermarkets in Europe as well. By the way, I'm in Belgium, and I was able to see these two both in the specialized supermarket and the big Carrefour as well. So I'm sure you will be able to find it. What else are we going to be using? We're going to be using onion, a pear, spring onions, lots of garlic, a little bit of ginger, and a very special salt from Korea. This is actually sea salt with the big grains. If you cannot find the sea salt Korean version, I sort of found another option for this. It's not exactly the same, but it is a sea salt with the big grains, and it's a French brand that I found in Carrefour. So the idea here is not to use the refined salt, but the big grains sea salt. It will be much better to use that. Also, we're going to be using two types of fish sauce. This one is the fish sauce with anchovies, and this one is the fish sauce with shrimps. And also, we're going to be using a little bit of sugar, also rice powder. And please, before you start, make sure that you have a container which is airtight, because we're going to be putting our kimchi, after we prepared everything, in a jar like this. But if it's not airtight, the fermentation, first of all, is not going to be successful. And the second thing, which is very, very important as well, your fridge is going to stink like hell. Because as you can see, we're going to be using onions, garlic, and this is kind of a fermentation process. So the smell of kimchi is quite strong and unique. So if you're not familiar with the smell of it, the smell would be a little bit bothering you if you left it in the fridge. That's an experience that I had. So make sure that you have a very good airtight container. Let's start making our Poggi Kimchi. So the first thing that we need to do is to get our cabbage ready. What do I mean by that? Just get rid of the outer leaves of the cabbage to make sure that you end up with a clean, nice looking cabbage. It would be wise to start with this stage because we're going to be soaking the cabbages in salty water for about 6 to 8 hours. So you will need the whole day. And don't think that, okay, I can do it at night and I can leave it and I can continue in the morning, because you will have to turn the cabbages every hour, every 2 hours to make sure that all parts of the cabbage is soft enough to become a kimchi. So let's start. The first thing I will do is cut the cabbage into 4, meaning I'm going to have quarters. But the way we cut is a little bit different. You're not just going to cut it like that. We're just going to be cutting from the bottom part halfway. Why? This is how I learned from the Korean chef. Well, of course you can cut it the way you want, but traditionally when they make kimchi in Korea, they always do that. Probably not to hurt the cabbage that much, because the top part of the cabbage looks slightly fragile. So let's continue with the process. This is like halfway. I'm going to be cutting from here to the bottom. Okay. I cut the cabbage in half, and then slightly by moving it, I'm going to separate it with my hands. This is the natural way of doing this. Perfect, it worked. And now I'm going to do the same, again, halfway. And then separate it with my hands. Now I have 4 quarters of cabbage, Napa cabbage. I'm going to be soaking these in salty water. How am I going to prepare the salty water? Very easy. I'll take a big bowl like this. I have water here. I'm going to pour it in there. And then the famous Korean salt. Let's take it. I'm not going to use the whole. I'm going to use just almost half, like 1, maybe a little bit more. I'm using 100 grams of salt, and what I learned actually was interesting, because I asked what's the difference between the Korean salt and the normal salt that we can find here, the sea salt. And the chef said when you actually try to dissolve the Korean salt in the water, Korean salt dissolves in water much quickly. And it is true, it's gone. So what we're going to do is to soak the cabbages one by one in the salty water. I'm just going to put them in and make sure that the water goes in the cabbage everywhere. And to be able to do that, you need to actually go in between each of the leaves of the cabbage. Make sure that the water has gone through each of the leaf. So it takes some time, but the outcome is so delicious, you're really gonna love it. So, and then we're going to put it in a different container, but when you do that, there's a way of doing it. You're not just going to put it like that. Why? Because the bottom part and here, as you can see, it's really thick. And this part is going to take a little bit more effort to soften. So what we're going to do is put this part, the bottom part, in the other bowl like this. As you can see, the upper part of the cabbage is already fragile and nice, and that won't need that much effort to soften. So the good thing to do is to put them like this. And then, of course, we're going to be adding a little bit of salty water in there, don't worry. So I will continue with each of the cabbages. We soaked our cabbages in the salty water, and now what we're going to do is add more salt. How we're going to do is like this. Actually, we're going to put some more salt in between each leaf. So this is how we do it. We take some salt in our hand, and for each leaf, we just sprinkled some. Make sure that you do not miss any. And put the salt at the very bottom of the cabbage. This is where we need the salt to make it softer. And then we're going to put it in another bowl like this. The bottom part of the cabbage will touch the bottom part of the container. So I will continue. My bowl is already big, so this much water would be enough, I guess. So I'm just putting the cabbages that I already salted once again, and then I'm going to put them like this. So what we're going to do is to leave these for about 6 to 8 hours. But we're not just going to leave them like that. Every 2 hours, I would say, we're going to change the direction of it, turn them to make sure that they are equally soaked in salty water. Now I'm going to start making the paste of kimchi that we're going to be spreading all over the cabbages. The first step to do this is to put the chili flakes and the sugar together. These chili flakes are special because they're from Korea. They're called gochugaru. Now we're gonna add some sugar to the chili flakes. I don't have a kitchen scale, so what I did was a smart thing to do. I used one of those sugar packages. It contains 5 grams of sugar. So for the recipe, we need 6 grams. So I'm just going to be using a little less than 2 packages. So the amount you should be using is 6 grams. So all I do is mix them together. For the time being, I'm just going to put this aside and I continue with the next stage. To prepare the paste, we first need our chopper. You don't need a big blender because the amount that we're going to be mixing is not going to be too much. So in a big blender, maybe it will be difficult to get this puree consistency. I have 7 cloves of garlic here. In the list of the ingredients, you have seen plus or minus 10. The reason why I'm opting for less is that the cloves that I have are a little bit bigger than usual. So I consider that that will count for another 2-3 cloves of garlic. So I put the garlic in the processor. Now I'm going to put my onion. As I said, I'm going to use 2/3 of it. You don't need to make small pieces because it's going to be in the processor anyways. I have a piece of ginger that I'm going to peel and then slice it and put it in the blender as well. Now I'm going to peel the pear and cut it into little pieces. So I put the garlic, the ginger, onion and pear in my blender, and now I'm going to add the 2 types of fish sauces and then blend them. So I'm adding the first one, the fish sauce with anchovies. I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of it. And then the second type. They have very particular smell. Now I put everything in my blender and I'm going to be mixing them to get a nice texture like a puree. Oof, the smell. Let me show you the consistency. Now I'm going to add this mixture in the chili flakes. I'm going to be mixing these really well together. For the preparation of the paste, we have one more stage. I have 2 tablespoons of rice powder here, and I'm going to add 8 tablespoons of water to it, and I'm just going to mix it continuously in the saucepan. It's going to be ready very quickly, so before it gets really thick and firm or burnt, we have to make sure that we take it out of the heat. As you can see, it has become really like a pudding. So I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of this in the mixture. So I mixed it really well. The next thing to do is to chop the spring onions and the radish. I'm going to show you how to do this now, and then those 2 will go in the paste, and then we will leave it to rest for about 30 minutes. I already peeled my white radish. I think this much would be okay. And then I'm going to chop them really finely. I think the culinary term is julienne. So I'm going to cut them like 3mm pieces, like stripes. So I line them up like this, and I'm going to be chopping them like this so that it's going to be 3mm pieces. I think I managed to make them 3mm, I don't know. I hope. So I'm going to put these in the mixture that we prepared before. I think the bowl I used is a little bit small, so I'm going to use a bigger one. Let's get the spring onions ready. Let's add the spring onions and then mix. It's ready, but it needs to wait at least 30 minutes to be fermented. So let's put this aside as well. Welcome back. It's been 7 hours and I want to check if the cabbages are soft enough. The best way to do is to take one and to try to bend. See one of those very thick part of the cabbage. If you try to bend it and if it's bended easily, it means that it's done. If it cracks, it means that you need some more time. So mine does not crack, so it means that we are ready. The next stage is to wash away the salt from the cabbages. So I'm going to wash them in a clear water 3 times actually, just to make sure that we don't have too much of salt in it. So basically I'm taking my cabbage, I'm going to put it in the clear water, cold by the way, and just shake it off a little bit. And then put it in another container, because we're going to be washing them 3 times. So I do the same thing with the rest of the cabbages. I'm trying to make sure that all the parts are clearly washed. The second one goes there, and the third. Try to open up the leaves a little bit so that you don't have any salt left. This is the second time, let's do it. So this is the third and the last time that I'm going to put the cabbages in clean water to shake off the salt. So we washed our cabbages in water 3 times to get rid of the saltiness, and now we need to drain them. I actually have 2 different types of an idea to use to drain the water. I'm actually going to be using the tray of my oven, or I actually have this kind of a thing to make Turkish ravioli, so I'm going to be putting this on a big plate so that I can drain it. What we're going to do is take the cabbage and then put it this way. When I say this way, the inner parts should be facing downwards. Why? Because if you put it the other way around, the water will be kept inside, but we don't want it. So we turn it upside down and put it this way. So the water is drained easily this way. Well, I have my gloves on, so we can start right now. What I'm gonna do is put the cabbages like this. Then I will be spreading the paste on each of the leaves. Let's not forget that. So what we do is we take a little bit of it. I'll use my hands actually. And then spread it on the leaf. As I said, it looks like it takes time, but actually in total, yes, because of the waiting time for the cabbages to be soaked in salty water and then the water to be drained. But in total, it's not really that long. And the result is going to be wonderful. The smell is actually so good, you will be surprised. Gives me a great idea about how delicious it's going to be.
So I'm going to turn it a little bit and then put it on the other side as well. I'm going to make sure that it touches the whole of the cabbage. So I'm going to make sure that the cabbage is covered with the paste. You know what? It actually looks good. I think that's fine. Perfect. Now, before we put it in the jar, let me show you the tip that I learned from Miss Che, my Korean chef who made this for us. So take the last leaf aside. So do not include that in the group. What you do is you just fold it in two and then take this and wrap it around nicely and then put it in the jar. Perfect.
So we're finished with the last stage of our kimchi. I spreaded the kimchi paste on the cabbages. Now all I'm going to do is just take the air out and then close it and leave it for 1 or 2 days out in the room temperature and then put it in the fridge. So let me just squeeze really tight so that we get rid of the air bubbles. And then we close it tightly. And there you go. And I used the second one. Let's have a look. This is how it turned out. And I think it really looks like the same color of my lovely Korean chef did. I hope I've been a good student. Well, I have 2 containers of kimchi ready. As you can see, it looks gorgeous in this beautiful jar. Well, at least to me. So I will leave these for 1 or 2 days in the room temperature and then keep it in the fridge for a very long time. Of course, before I finish it within a week or so, because I'm sure it's going to be delicious. I hope you liked my video and I hope you found it useful. Maybe you can make kimchi one day, and if you do, why don't you share your photos or the outcome of your kimchi experience by tagging me on Instagram. I have an Instagram page as well. It's at Cook and Scoop. We learned how to make kimchi and our teacher was a Korean chef, so it was really a great opportunity for all of us. And our Zoom participants were very lucky because they already received every ingredient that is needed to make kimchi from the Korean Cultural Center. And then, of course, the Face Live streaming audience was able to ask questions or make comments about our kimchi making experience. That was a wonderful program. So if you want to watch it, why don't you go to the Facebook profile of Korean Cultural Center Brussels. I'm going to leave the link down below in the description part. I'm actually going to put all the information about Korean Culture Center in Brussels and my Instagram page, and also how to make this kimchi as well. I hope you liked the video, and if you did, why don't you press that like button, and also if you subscribe to my channel, that will be a great opportunity for you to be informed about the upcoming videos. So I hope to see you next time, and I have a feeling like next video is going to be another Korean dish, because I already have the ingredients ready in the fridge. So I thank you all very much for watching my video, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.